Welcome to the channel, friends. So today's project will be covering the refill and transfer of liquid propane between tanks. Now this applies to 1 pound tanks, 20 pound tanks, and also 40 pound tanks alike. I will be discussing the proper procedure, how to do this safely, and some of the tools you'll need. So if this is something that's going to interest you, stay tuned, and I hope you enjoy the video. Alright, so welcome back, folks. This is a continuation of my part 1 video, and this is going to be going over refilling of tanks. So yesterday I went and did this valve here. I replaced it, and I just did not like the way this valve felt, so it was time to replace that with a brand new one, which I did, and I went ahead and filled up my tank. That one is full, and now I have some empty tanks here, being a 1 pound tank and this 20 pound tank that I want to show you guys how to refill or transfer liquid propane between. So I have a couple things here that make the process safe and easy to do. This being the gas 1 propane converter and propane refill adapter. I got this on Amazon. I will put the link down below directly to it. And it comes with a 2-piece system here. You have this 4-foot hose, and then you have this adapter, which is used for your smaller tanks. This will go right on there, and then this side will attach to the propane tank, like I'll show you in just a few minutes. But the good thing about this, which I didn't even realize at first, is that this side here on the hose has a built-in Schrader valve. You can't really see that on camera, but there is a Schrader valve core in there. So that means when you hook up this end here to a 20 pound tank, it will not bleed out this end. You will get nothing out this end, which makes it great because you can use this to refill and not worry about the liquid propane in the hose coming out once you disconnect your fitting. So we're going to go ahead and properly measure out the propane. This is how you would do it if you want to do it accurately and extremely safe. You go ahead and measure it on a scale, because you only want to put 1 pound of propane in these smaller containers, including your tall blue one. And then the same process applies to a 20 pound tank. There is some overflow and built-in protection when it comes to overfilling. I will be going over this valve and doing a destructive review and kind of taking the whole thing apart and showing you how it works. But right now we're going to go ahead and measure an empty cylinder. Let's turn on the scale. So that is 0.91 pounds. That's good to know. This one here is still filled with propane, but we'll still go ahead and measure it. Okay, so that one's 1.35. So I'm guessing that, roughly 0.35 is liquid propane, because they weigh about 1 pound each, the tanks. So we got our figures from the smaller tanks. Let's go ahead and put a larger tank on the scale and see what it weighs. Alright, so an empty tank weighs 18.19 pounds. That's good for reference, so we know how much the tank weighs itself. But when we go to refill this, we can easily tear this out. So it says 0 on the scale. And then we can measure how much liquid propane registers now in the tank from this point on. These tanks here will only hold a maximum of 20 pounds. That's because there is a built-in safety in the valve to allow no more than that. So you want to leave room for expansion in the tank due to heat and things like that, just in case you leave it inside of a vehicle, inside of a hot shed, or leave it outside in the sun. It will build up pressure, which will not be good, because then it will discharge out the safety valve up top. Okay, so first we're going to go ahead and fill up this 1 pound propane tank through the 20-pound tank that's filled. So this can be achieved by using this small refill adapter. First, you want to go ahead and make sure that your valve is closed all the way. Then go ahead and thread on your adapter. And now you can thread on your 1-pound tank. So it will not fill in this orientation right here because you're just going to fill it with gas. The liquid is going to be sitting on the bottom of the tank. So what we have to do is flip this upside down in order to fill it properly with liquid propane. Then once we do that, we'll go take a measurement on a scale of what's in the container. Gonna go ahead now and open up the valve. You will hear some hissing, that is normal. So what's going to happen is once it gets to the point where it's filled, it's going to stop hissing. Now you do want to do this in a well-ventilated area just in case there are some built-up fumes. Here in the workshop I have a exhaust blower that circulates the air, so I do not have that problem. But if you can do it outside, I would definitely recommend doing this outside. Alright, so next we're going to go ahead and close the valve. So this step is very important. So the first thing you want to do is close your valve. And now you want to unthread the 1-pound tank from the brass and not unthread the black coupling. Okay, so if you were to do that, you would just release all the liquid propane you just filled up into this tank. You want to remove the smaller tank and allow the Schrader valve in the smaller tank to close as you're removing it and releasing it from the fitting. So from the brass and not from the black coupling. Just gonna go ahead. I'm gonna go ahead and do this actually on the ground because I don't want to get it in my face. You do have some residual propane gas that's in the adapter, but that's okay. It's very minimal. So we have liquid propane now in this smaller container. Let's go check out how much. As you can see, it's measuring 1.16. So it only filled up with liquid propane about 0.2 of a pound. I'm not happy with that figure. Let me go ahead and try this again and see if I can put more propane in the tank. Alright, so I went ahead and backed off the Schrader valve as the tank was upside down and released some of that built up pressure that was in the tank, kind of preventing the liquid propane to actually fill the rest of the bottle. Alright, so we have much more liquid propane in the tank. So we have 1.56. So we have about 0.6 of a pound of liquid propane in here. Now, if you're just using this for small stuff, this most likely is going to be fine. You know, you just go ahead and use this and refill it whenever you need to. If you have to fill it to the absolute maximum, you want exactly 1 pound in here, you might have to chill this bottle. I did not do that. That would help refilling it. So I'm gonna give it one more try and purge it again as it's filling up, and see what happens. See if I can get it higher than the 1.56. Just hold it open for a little bit. Let it flow into the tank. Essentially, when this thing fills up, it's going to spit out liquid propane, so it's very important to have gloves on. Oh, I feel some coldness. Okay, it's good. Let's give it a try now. Okay, so there you have it. We have 2 pounds even, so that means we have just shy over a pound of liquid propane in here, and this bottle is filled up completely. And I did not have to chill it whatsoever. So I guess that myth is debunked. So now let's go ahead and move on to transferring between 20-pound containers and see what happens. Alright, so I'm here the next day, and I have the tank set up with a better way to fill, because what was happening was it was not filling because the tank pressure equalized and it just didn't have enough of a temperature differential for it to transfer over. So what I'm doing here, I have a container full of hot water off my water heater, which is about 120 degrees. This is the tank that has the propane, and I'm transferring it with the hose to the empty tank, which is here in the ground. I elevated it just so it could, as it's condensing, it would flow down the tube and into the empty tank easier. So you don't have to really do that, but I just went the extra step, and just to be sure that everything is kind of flowing downhill in a way. So I have the hot water in here. On my gauge, this reads at the maximum for a hot day. So this gauge here has 3 scales on it: cold day, cool day, and hot day. So depending on the temperature, your gauge is going to read differently. So this one compensates for different temperatures of the day. So that's a great gauge. I have the same gauge over here. It's also pegged out. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and open the valves. And when I do that, it should transfer over more efficiently than it did yesterday, because yesterday I just did not have enough of a temperature differential. Once, like I said, the pressure was relieved when you open the valve, it just wouldn't transfer over after that, and that's why I was only getting half a pound. So this should be better results. As I'm heating this side here, I'm going to be cooling this side with the hose. So I have it all set up and I'm ready to go, and I'll just give you a temperature really quick. So the water is right now 115. I had 117 earlier, about 5 minutes ago. So the top of the tank is 88. So we're still in a safe range. We're not superheating the tank. We're just getting it up to about 120 degrees once I fill it with some fresh hot water off my water heater. The tank on this side should be ambient, which is 58, 57. And this will be cool. We can see this on the FLIR thermal camera here, or thermometer. Outside the tank is about 104. So this will be interesting. We'll capture this on the FLIR and see what it looks like. Alright, I'm going to set the camera down, and I'm going to go ahead and start filling the tank. I can hear it flowing. It's flowing very well. I can hear it hissing in there kind of aggressively. So it's working for sure. Still pegged over here in that gauge. So now it's registering with the needle just at the beginning of the green on the scale. So it is filling. We have some transferred already. Okay, so I went ahead and grabbed the scale now, and I'm just gonna place the tank on the scale and see what we have. We know the tank is 18.2 pounds. So it's registering at 19.59. So we've added about 1.4 pounds of propane. Let's continue and see how much more we can fill the tank with. So what's happening is this liquid propane is kind of boiling off inside the tank and releasing more gas pressure, and that gas is flowing outside the tank into the tube and into this tank, which is cold. And this tank, since it's cold, is allowing the liquid propane, the propane gas to condense back into a liquid, and that's what's effectively transferring the liquid propane from gas back to liquid into this tank. And this tank is going to stay cold. If we see it not flowing enough, we want to raise that differential. So we either need to cool this down more or heat this up more. All right, so let's go ahead and give this a measurement now. We are at 20 pounds even total, so the tank is 18.2. So we have 1.8 pounds of propane in here. Let's continue. This thing is really whistling. The tube does not have that big of a diameter opening at each end, so that could be the cause of that whistling sound. Alright, so I'm just going to continue this and see how much more I can fill up the tank with. Okay, so I shut both valves right now, and this tank is starting to get warm. So we have that pegged. This is also still pegged. It's not really that hot to the touch. So what has to happen here is this tank here has to be cooled for the process to continue efficiently. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. But before that, I'm going to go ahead and weigh it and see how much I got further. Okay, we're only at 20.67 pounds. So, what is that? That's, I don't know, 2.4? That needle in this gauge now came down because I was cooling it off with the hose. We have a lot more liquid propane in the tank now. Let's go ahead and measure with the scale. Okay, so 21.8 pounds. So that makes, that'll be 3.6. So we've transferred over 3.6 pounds of liquid propane. Now this process can continue on until this tank is basically empty and you have everything transferred over to your other tank. So I really don't need to do that at the moment. I just want to do a kind of proof of concept with the process, and it does work, and it does work better when you have that higher differential. So you want this really hot and this really cold, and it will fill, you know, quicker. So I'm happy with the tank the way it is right now. I just wanted to demonstrate for you guys how this is a better process than what I was doing in the workshop. That did not work because, like I said, once the pressure's equalized, that hiss kind of calmed down, there was nothing transferring without a temperature differential. So do not use any kind of flame or torch or heating device on the tank. This is the safest way. You want to put it in some hot water that's just barely hot enough for you to touch. And basically the hot water that comes out of your tap faucet, that will work sufficiently to give you that temperature differential. And you can pretty much do this any time of year. The colder the better, actually, because you can always get hot water, just pump it back into the container, and the tank being cold will be better if you're in a wintertime situation. So it'll transfer over quicker. So really happy with the way it came out. This tank is still nice and warm. This one's nice and cool. So there it is. That's how you transfer liquid propane, whether it's a 20-pound tank or a 1-pound tank. Well, guys, that's it for today. I really hope you enjoyed the video. And if you have any questions or comments, please place them right down below. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel already, please go ahead and do so. I want to thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.